Alright, today we're talking about character creation for Fantasy Flight's Genesys RPG, which is based off of their Star Wars RPG. Okay, so this is a generic role-playing system, hence the Genesys, and it's meant to bring to life worlds and campaigns from just about any setting. They have 6 examples: fantasy, sci-fi, space opera, steampunk, weird war, and modern. And so it's great that the system has a lot of flexibility, but also that means all of your character options are going to be spread out throughout the whole book, which is annoying as shit. Also, depending on your GM and what kind of campaign he wants to run, some of these might not be available to you. So when I build an example character, I might be using options that aren't at your disposal, but the basic process of character creation is going to be the same for you. So anyway, you have a couple big character creation decisions to make. Number 1, your species, which will give you some basic stats, your starting characteristics, and those 6 characteristics are the most powerful numbers in the game for you. You're also going to get wound threshold and strain threshold, which for now is just a base number. Write in the base number on your character sheet. It's going to get modified later, but let's not worry about that for now. Basically, your wound and strain thresholds are physical and mental health respectively. Now you're also going to get things like a free rank in a skill, a species ability that's kind of unique to you, gives you something special, like the dwarves get dark vision, the orcs get some sort of rage mode or some shit. I don't know. The point is you get something cool to make your species choice kind of stand out a bit more. Now the species, like a lot of your choices, are scattered throughout the book. In the general rules, we have 4 types of human. You know, a general, jack-of-all-trades human, a more brawny, physically tough human, an intelligent one, and a talker. And these should be open to any setting you play, but also each setting has some of its own species. Well, some of them do. Most of them do, not all of them. And there's a total of 15 choices in the game, as well as a section to build your own, working with the GM to build your own species or tweak existing ones, but we're not going to go over that. That's really more for you and your GM to work out on your own. So you've picked your species, you wrote down your stats and your abilities. Now you got to pick your career, which was also in Star Wars, although here it works a bit differently. Here, all it is a series of 8 skills, which you now get as career skills, meaning they're going to be cheaper for you to upgrade as the game progresses. Also, you can get a free rank in half of these skills of your choosing, which is just like in the Star Wars RPG. However, there are no talent trees in the game that are attached to and assigned to careers. All a career is a series of 8 career skills, half of which get a free rank. So pick your career, and we got some general careers like healer and scoundrel, careers that really fit kind of any setting. We also have more setting specific careers like knight and druid, though really with a little tweaking, even just changing the name, multiple careers could fit multiple settings, so it's not something to get too hung up on. As always, talk with your GM. They should be pretty flexible on it though. Anyway, pick your career, check off which skills on your character sheet are now career skills because of your career, and then half of those will get a free rank. And this could stack with the free rank you got from your species. And it's not a bad idea to do so because every skill rank gets gradually more and more expensive. So if you double up on free ranks and have both of those 2 be free, well then that second free rank is essentially worth more points. You get basically 5 points for free by doubling up on free ranks. It's not likely that this is actually going to happen, far less likely than it would have in the Star Wars game, but if you see it's possible to double up on free ranks in a particular skill, one that you got as your species and one from your career, you might as well. Why not? It's going to save you a few points. The next step is to spend your starting experience points, and you can spend those on your characteristics, your 6 main numbers that, as I said before, are really powerful, and this is the only time you can directly spend points on your characteristics, so might not be a bad idea to focus on those, especially because they're so powerful. Improving your brawn in this game has a much greater effect on your character than improving your strength in D&D would, for example. You can also spend your points to buy new ranks of skills as well as ranks of talents, which we'll go over those in a minute. But really, it's not a bad rule of thumb to focus on your characteristics. Anyway, there are 2 basic approaches to upgrading your characteristics that I would recommend. One is the more jack-of-all-trades approach, where you focus on getting more 3s and 2s in your characteristics. It's going to give you a fair amount of flexibility, though of course it depends on how you distribute your points in your skills as well as your talents later on. But if you're not entirely sure what you want your character to be yet, and this game has the flexibility where you really can wait to decide what they are later on, then the jack-of-all-trades approach might be the best way to go. So spend your points, and buy up as many 3s as you can. At least 3, maybe 4 if your species can swing it. It depends, every species gets a certain amount of points, and not every species can get the same exact build. Anyway, not a bad way to go. However, if you know what you want to do, I want to be a damage dealer, I want to be a talker or techie or whatever, get a 4 in there and then find the stat that's second most important to you, whatever that may be, and put a 3 in that. And you might have points left over for a second 3. You might even have the points for 2 4s, which is another build, in Star Wars at least, that I'm really kind of liking a lot lately. So that's another way to go. But at the very least, a couple of 3s or a 4 and a 3 and whatever else. These are just some basic rules of thumb to follow in order to build a halfway decent character. At least provide the foundation for a halfway decent character. But anyway, you've bought up a bunch of characteristics, hopefully spending most of your points on them, though of course not every character has to. And you got some points left over, or maybe your GM decided to give you points extra after character creation, which is in the book. There's a recommendation for that if that's what you want to do. If that's what they want to do. Obviously, they're calling the shots. You don't get a say in this, bitch. Oh, by the way, before I move on, characteristics are limited to 5. Not just at character creation, but period. Which is very different than how it worked in Star Wars. So for your Star Wars players, keep that in mind. Limited to 5, which I think is a bit better. Dice pools could get out of hand otherwise in Star Wars. So that's probably for the best. Now let's move on to skills and talents. You can buy up new skill ranks, which might not be a bad idea, especially a couple rank 1s in your career skills. Those are going to be pretty cheap, your points are going to go a fairly long way, and it's not a bad idea to spread yourself out a little bit, at least throughout your career, if it fits your character, of course. But really, it's your talents where you really separate your character from everyone else. So what I like to do is go for the talents as soon as I can. As soon as I've taken care of my characteristics, figure out what I want with that, then I go straight for the talents, because that really kind of separates you from the pack. Now, the way the talents work is, unlike in Star Wars RPG, there are no talent trees for you to pick from. All of the talents are separated into 5 different tiers, with tier 1 being the cheapest and least powerful, tier 5 being the most powerful but also more expensive. Now, the one big limitation with buying these talents is that you have to have more talents of a lower tier than the one above it. So before you can buy a single tier 2 talent, you have to have at least 2 tier 1s. So before you can get one of the big tier 5 talents, of which there's like only 5 in the game, you have to have at least 2 tier 4s, 3 tier 3s, 4 tier 2s, and 5 tier 1s. Now what this does is it provides a really nice way to plan your character. I like to go, when I'm building a character, just go straight towards the tier 5 talents, which, you know, there's only a handful, and find one that really fits my character. What is the big creme de la creme, crown jewel of a talent that I want to have for my character? And if there is one, well, we just write that down, and we even got a really cool pyramid sheet in the back where you can plan out your character, just essentially make your own talent tree. Like in Star Wars, you had the talent trees that you can then print out, and they had little check boxes you could check mark off as you bought new talents. Here we have a pyramid-shaped talent tree where you can plan out your progression. So from the beginning, just write in 1 to 3 tier 5 talents that you want, although obviously you could have more. It might take you forever to get there, but that's all the tree really leaves room for. That's probably all that's really realistic. Anyway, you write in the talents that you want for tier 5, tier 4, tier 3, etc. And then as you make your way through, just check mark off the ones you purchase, which is really nice and convenient. Now, another thing about talents is that some of them are ranked. And a ranked talent means that you can buy it multiple times. Star Wars players will recognize things like grit and toughened, enduring, and you can buy these talents multiple times and get the benefits over and over and over again. However, every time you purchase a ranked talent, it will then move up a tier. So it's going to cost as much as the next tier, and it's going to count as that next tier as far as your requirements are for buying talents. So what I mean is, the grit talent, a very common talent in Star Wars, gives you a +1 to your strain threshold. It's a tier 1 talent. You buy it for the 5 points that a tier 1 talent costs, and now it moves up to a tier 2 talent for you. So you buy it a second time, you buy tier 2 grit, which is not listed in the book. It's still labeled in tier 1. It's not as if they have a separate version for each one. That would waste space. But anyway, for you, it's tier 2, which means it now costs the same as a tier 2 talent, 10 points. And also, because it's a tier 2 talent, you need at least 2 tier 1s before you can purchase it. So, your first talent you buy, rank 1 of Grit, and you want that rank 2 of Grit, but first you need to buy at least one other tier 1 talent. This may be a little confusing, don't worry, we will build a sample character, but for now, the final part is Motivation. Now, Motivation is basically a collection of 4 aspects to your character: Fear, Flaw, Strength, and Desire. You need to pick one of each for your character, and there's a list of 10 options for each. Also, there's a chart you can roll on. Take a D100 and roll randomly to see what fear you get, or what desire, or whatever. Or you can even make up your own if one here doesn't really work for you, that's fine. All this really is one of 2 things. One, to provide a bit of encouragement for you to really think about your character in more detail than you might have normally, as well as providing a sort of solid foundation for who this person is. So you and the GM are on the same page as to who this character is, therefore they have an easier time making content for that character. Because really, it's supposed to be your guys' story, ideally. So there are no really hard and fast mechanical differences for each individual desire or fear or whatever. It's a bit more abstract, though they do play a pretty significant role in talking encounters, but I don't know, maybe we'll talk about those on a different video, maybe we never will, I don't know, just read the fucking book. Anyway, let's start building our sample character.